Hello, everyone. My name is Arriale Starbird. I'm a holistic health and fitness coach. I saw this update recently about Gordon Ryan, and honestly, it just made me want to cry because I really love the sport of MMA. For people who don't know, MMA stands for Mixed Martial Arts, and it's kind of a new sport. Obviously, martial arts is very ancient, but this combination of kickboxing and boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a few other ones that get thrown in there, karate and things like that. That's new. And I actually train in that sport. I really love that sport. So when I see someone who is really struggling with their health in order to do the sport that they love, it's like heartbreaking. So Gordon Ryan, I don't think he may do MMA. I don't know if he does MMA. He does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is like one aspect of MMA. It's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a lot of grappling, and BJJ is arguably even tougher on joints than, let's say, boxing. You have to have very, very healthy, tough body to do the sport. Um, I think Gordon Ryan is 27 or 28. He's a young guy, and he's already kind of a legend in the sport. He's considered the best, the greatest of all time. He was known for a long time for doing a lot of steroids, a lot of steroids. And a lot of young men just want to do that because they want to do well in the sport and they want to compete in the sport. So they unfortunately are not thinking about their health as it's going to be in their 30s and 40s and 70s. They're just not thinking long term. They don't care, very unfortunately. Well, now I hope he cares. He has had a massive health issue for the last few months. It's kind of becoming famous online, and I think that's good that he's honest about it, because so everyone knows that this is the outcome. This is what happens when you go down this path. He has had very massive gut health issues due to the overuse of the various drugs he's been on, steroids in particular, also a lot of antibiotics, this constant use of antibiotics. And I think men and women are very, very different in that if I had to use antibiotics like he does, like I react immediately. My body's always been very sensitive. If I have any amount of poison in me, like antibiotics, it's within minutes. I know that this is bad, and I get very, very sick immediately from any kind of poison. Whereas he was poisoning himself for many years and not feeling it. And I think that's the big difference. This is why I would never end up in that kind of situation. But I still have a lot of empathy and compassion for this person for a variety of reasons. So this is very, very common in the world in general to have these kinds of issues, these gut health issues due to the overuse of antibiotics. But I'm realizing that as I got more into competitive sports, I realized how many. I was actually shocked to see how many people, how many athletes are completely sold hook, line, and sinker on the conventional pharmaceutical medical model. They don't think about it. Someone tells them, take this medication, they just pop the pills. Oh, you can grow big muscles if you take steroids, they just inject. And they don't do anything holistic, and yet they perform and they compete and they win medals. Maybe they feel crappy, maybe they don't, but unfortunately there's like there is this idea in fitness that like it doesn't matter how you feel, just train. It doesn't matter if you don't feel like it, and that's true. You have to train all the time, but if you feel like your health is being destroyed and you ignore that, that's a very bad idea. You have to pay attention to that. And so what happens is they are on all these drugs for a really long time, and they compete and they do well. They even win medals. I made a video about Georges St. Pierre, who is one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time, and he also had a lot of gut issues, like literally bleeding out of his butt, bleeding out of his body, and still winning medals. So that's incredible on one hand. On the other hand, oh, so foolish, because you're destroying your health for the long term. So this is why they retire so young, because the body breaks down. It can't take the abuse anymore. And some of these athletes die young. They die in their 20s and 30s. uh, 40s. That's still young, you know, considering you could live till your 80s, 90s, maybe past 100. Um, so people in my holistic health field often say, or want to say, "We told you so. We told you so. We told you so," because we've been saying for how many decades that the overuse of antibiotics totally destroys gut health, because it kills the healthy gut bacteria that you need in your gut. That healthy gut bacteria is a part of your immune system. It's actually a part of it. So if you destroy that healthy gut bacteria, you are destroying your immune system. It can't work right. And when your immune system breaks down, then you become susceptible to all kinds of infections, even little minor things that just someone else would just throw off their body. Now it becomes a massive problem. Um, and a part of me would does want to say in these kinds of situations, "I told you so," but honestly, I just feel horrible for this man who has been actually abused by the conventional medical system. So what's happening to him is not entirely his fault. He's been misled. He allowed himself to be misled, so I'm not taking responsibility off of him, but he's still the one putting the drugs in his body, but he's also not informed properly by the experts in the field, and but in the conventional medical field. There are so many holistic health remedies and tools that are available that can solve all of these problems and prevent them in the future. But because everything holistic is just censored mercilessly online, holistic health practitioners and holistic health doctors are being totally erased out of many people's realities in their feed and on Google, that many people never find out about these holistic solutions. And the reason Google erases us is, and YouTube and all of these major social media networks, it's not because we don't know what we're doing. Some people have PhDs on PhDs. I've had a practice for over 20 years, is because we're a threat. We're a threat to the status quo. We challenge them. They don't like it. We don't like when we take away their profits. This is like a David against Goliath situation. And unfortunately, Goliath in the last few decades have been winning. A lot of people don't know how many holistic doctors have been murdered and assassinated. Oh, big scary topic. Oh my God, holistic doctors are being murdered. Yeah, it's been going on since the 80s. I talk to people now, they never heard about it. Why haven't you heard about it? These are brilliant minds, geniuses in the holistic medical field. They have patents, they have inventions. We figured out how to cure cancer, AIDS a long time ago. All that got covered up. Why? Why? You got to ask why. And I'm not going to do your thinking for you. I want you to do some research, figure it out. You tell me, post in the comments. Why is that happening? So a lot of people, until they hit rock bottom, maybe even they hit rock bottom several times, they don't reach out to anything holistic. They don't take it seriously. They don't look for it, maybe even. And when the medical system has no answers for them, when they're told to go home and die, we gave you everything we had for you. You're still sick, or just go home and die. Then they turn to the holistic and the alternative medical path. And it's not that it's too late at that point. I don't think anyone is beyond hope, but you're now dealing with a much bigger problem that could have been prevented. If they had been on a holistic path in their sport from the start, none of these problems would have happened. Not the gut health issues. You probably would have still had physical injuries. The sport is very challenging. Would you have possibly torn an ACL? Possibly. That's more of a mechanical issue, but possibly not. If your body was very, very strong, you were educated about the holistic fitness protocols, maybe you wouldn't have had those physical injuries either. But it's a little bit different in terms of the gut health issues that he's had, and the immune system issues that definitely could have been prevented. Yeah, I am 100% certain that all of these problems that he's experiencing now, all of them, I watched a few of his videos where he goes into a little more detail about what is going on with them. All of that could have been prevented if he was utilizing the holistic lifestyle protocols, holistic sports protocols, holistic remedies for all of his needs, energy needs, muscle building needs, injury recovery and prevention, and all the other aspects that go into building up a body, and building up your mind for the sport. I want to show you this 4-minute clip about his update, and then I'll tell you about the solutions I have to all of these problems.
No amount of competition success is worth what I just went through for the last 3 weeks.
The biggest thing is steroids.
See what happens when he's not on steroids? I'm like, no, I just had a surgery and I was dying for 2 months.
We're potentially losing arguably the greatest to ever do it.
What happened was you got staph infection. Henzo's in New York City was notorious for giving people staph.
It's caused by a bacteria. The infection can be life-threatening if it ends up in your bloodstream, bones, or other organs.
Basically, you take the antibiotics and it wipes out the good bacteria in your stomach. And then your immune system is trying to fix that. So then your immune system's low. It's not as strong as it usually is. And then you get staph again. And then you take more antibiotics. And then it wipes out your stomach even worse. So then your immune system's on overdrive trying to fix it. And then you get staph again. Out of the 365 days in the year, I must have been on antibiotics for between 280 and 300 days. I was on antibiotics way more than I was not. And it just wiped out everything in my stomach, all the good bacteria, everything.
This soon would cause another problem entirely.
Days I would train 4 sessions in a row, and I'd get home and I'm I haven't eaten all day. How am I not hungry? I have 2 or 3 spoonfuls of soup, and I'd be I'm full on nauseous. You gotta be kidding me. 24/7 nauseous. The best way I can describe it is the worst hangover you ever had, where you want to throw up to feel better but you can't. That's my baseline. And then it gets worse from there. I couldn't even hold a conversation anymore. I was so nauseous. Every time I walked into a room, I'd be oh, there's a garbage can in case I have to throw up.
This is so crazy, bro.
I went to all the best doctors in the country, and they're just useless. They just, we'll do an endoscopy. I had one guy do a colonoscopy, and yeah, you look fine.
He would endure for 3 years while remaining undefeated for 32 matches in a row, until he couldn't take it anymore.
Finally, I was you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore.
How tough was that for you to have to give up what was looking like such a promising career at such a young age?
Oh, man, it was the worst.
A friend suffering from a similar problem throws him a lifeline.
He's you got to go to Dr. Rahbar in California. So he did a bunch of tests that no one's ever done. I think it was mycotoxins from mold. My levels are way off. 0 to 5 was normal, and then 5 to 10 was moderately high, and then I think over 10 was high. And mine was 555. I was 50 times what I was supposed to be. I had H. pylori. I had a bacterial imbalance in my stomach. I had a huge, massive fungal overgrowth in my small intestine. And I had mold poisoning from somewhere. I had 4 different things. They had to treat them all. Now I've been on treatment for a year and a half, and everything's back from way in the red into the yellow category. So he said another year and a half, 2 years, I should be back to normal. And I'm just okay.
He goes back to competition in 2022.
I was just going to do ADCC 2022 and then stop competing, but I wanted to make everybody happy. And I kind of just got cocky and got rolled back into competition right away. I went to Abu Dhabi. Back from Abu Dhabi, I had strep throat. And I thought it was just going to be a simple strep infection, go away. Well, it was an antibiotic-resistant strep throat.
His throat was shut tight, and his ears became so inflamed that he felt his head would explode.
I was sick for a month and a half with strep. I was on antibiotics 45 days straight. And it finally cleared up. They thought that I had been colonized, and they wanted to take my tonsils out, which they did. But then they looked up my nose, and they saw that I had a badly deviated septum. So they did deviated septum and tonsillectomy at the same time. And then I couldn't eat. Obviously, everyone saw that viral picture of me not being able to eat and being 200 pounds after I did the surgery.
A lot of your competitors are out there talking trash when they put up those gifs and those pictures of you sick and then you when you're all yoked out. Does that piss you off or
no? Because they know when I come back, it's going to be trouble.
Finally better. He comes back to competition against Patrick Gaudio.
I'm ready to get back out there to show people why I'm who I am.
Sadly, the good days wouldn't last long.
I knew that when I did the 45 days of antibiotics before I had my tonsils taken out, that it set me back, but I figured that I made it through months later, but the fungal infection and bacterial imbalance was kind of working its way back in. Just trying to get healthy now. It's my main priority, and then hopefully once I'm healthy, I'll be able to come back and compete.
So, first of all, steroids. Someone who's taking steroids has the same risk factors as someone who's morbidly obese, in fact. In the last few years, I actually found a technology that is based on Nikola Tesla healing technology. It's infrared light therapy, and it can work to help you build muscles naturally without the use of steroids and without any of the negative side effects of steroids. So to be clear, This technology is not steroid. It's not meant to be used instead of steroid. It's not some kind of a copy of steroids. It's not related to that at all. It's a red light therapy. It's a form of photobiomodulation, but it helps with sports performance, energy, and muscle building naturally. So I highly recommend it. I actually offer it to my clients. So if you're interested, reach out. It's very easy to wear. It's a wearable, and it's pretty affordable. 2, H. pylori. This is a type of very common bacteria that causes ulcers, among other things, always different types of gut issues. And some people get it from stress. A lot of it comes from stress, and as well as all the GMOs and chemicals that people consume. But a lot of times people are under so much stress, especially athletes. They train so hard every day. There's so much mental and physical stress they're putting their bodies under, and then they ignore the stress or don't deal with it. They just eat it and suppress it. It causes them to develop ulcers, and these ulcers can hurt and bleed. Some people don't necessarily feel the ulcers; but they do bleed, and it's possible to bleed to death from these ulcers. It's possible also to become so anemic as you're bleeding constantly in your gut. It's possible to become so anemic due to the loss of so much blood that you become very fatigued and can't get out of bed, like physically can't get out of bed. And that actually happened to a client of mine last year. He had surgery and got this infection in the hospital during surgery, which often happens, sepsis. And he got home and was on his bed and was and so the infection kicked in. So he was really sick from that, but at the same time, is bleeding out of these ulcers. And so he was really anemic and really fatigued and feeling unwell and actually slowly dying. And he kind of lives in the middle of nowhere. So even if he yelled out for help, nobody would hear him. But thankfully, I've been working with this client for so many years now, 8 years maybe, that I actually knew he was not okay. I actually knew something was wrong. And I contacted his sister, and I told her to go to check on him. She was at work, so she called a law enforcement officer to go to do a welfare check. And the welfare check actually saved his life, because you would have just bled to death from these ulcers, unable to get up and unable to move, or even pick up the phone. Like he couldn't move at all. He couldn't even go to the other room to get the phone. Or I don't know if the phone. Yeah, I don't think the phone was in his room. So yeah, that could have been ended very, very badly, but thankfully he was saved. And if your immune system has been compromised, whether it's by extreme stress that you put yourself under, like with athletics, or your immune system is compromised because you were in a surgery, you just got out of surgery, even things like these basic infections, viral or bacterial, they can kill you in one way or another, or you can become so unwell that you can't move forward. So thirdly, he was talking about mold. This is a very big deal. Mold is incredibly toxic. And sometimes mold comes from the environment. And sometimes mold, if you are very compromised, your immune system is very compromised, you can actually have mold growing inside you. And if you don't know that, you're really screwed. There should be regular tests to test for mold. I could probably make a separate video about mold and just how bad it is and how common of a problem it is. Mold can actually cause permanent brain damage if you have so much mold, especially if kids are growing in a moldy environment and there's mold on the brain. It can cause very serious brain damage and symptoms of brain damage. You have to get rid of the mold immediately out of your body as soon as you know it's there. But when you overuse antibiotics and when you overuse other drugs where things in your body don't work right, and you're destroying all this healthy gut bacteria, it can lead to mold growing inside you, because that healthy gut bacteria fights it. It fights the bad bacteria. But when you get rid of it, you don't have an army fighting for you anymore. And now all those bad bacteria can overgrow, and then other things, they sort of clump together. It's like a mafia. The bad bacteria, the viruses, the parasites, the heavy metals, they all start to work together to vampirize you of your health. And so this is why you really got to nip it in the bud if you can, Otherwise, you have this massive storm that you're dealing with. Eventually, the overload of the mold toxicity and the viruses and the bacteria and the other infections in there, it can eventually lead to cancer or other degenerative diseases. And that is very hard to get rid of. I've worked with clients who've had cancer, and it's an absolute nightmare. It takes decades. If you survive it all, it can take decades to then heal from that. But that doesn't happen overnight. That's a lot of years of abuse of yourself to get to that point. Fourth, he was talking about antibiotics for staph infections or strep throat. There are so many ways to kill off infections naturally. There's vitamin C, especially liposomal vitamin C, is better absorbed, zinc, quercetin, colloidal silver, smart silver, oregano oil, and many other herbal and natural methods, not to mention homeopathics, that do not have any negative side effects at all. But you need to use them intelligently. You need very specific protocols designed for you, and you need time. It takes time for these things to work. Anything natural takes time. So if you have a massive acute infection, you can't just shove herbs and all this stuff down your throat and expect it to work the next day. It doesn't work like that. And also, you need a lifestyle change. If you're having all these issues, there's something really out of balance in your lifestyle, and you have to look at it and you have to change it. I've done BJJ for a while, and I actually recently did some tests, and I found out I had strep throat, but I had no symptoms at all. I didn't even know I had it, and I know it's because of all the rolling around with different people on the mats for so many months. Otherwise, I didn't have strep throat since I was in high school. Strep throat is very, very, very common, and it should be easy to get rid of. But again, it's not easy if your entire immune system is compromised, if you have so many other problems and your body can't fight 15 things at the same time. It's going to take priority. And you might have this overgrowth of one thing because it's busy fighting something else. This is why it's so important that you build up your immune system over time. So a strep throat by itself is not really the end of the world. But due to the overuse of antibiotics by conventional doctors, which just constantly overprescribe antibiotics for any and every little thing, a lot of these infections have become antibiotic resistant. So you go to the doctor, you get antibiotics, you take them for a few months, and now you have wiped out all the good gut bacteria that is the foundation of your immune system. And so now you naturally cannot fight off that infection. And you still have the infection. You're now in a much worse position and you have a much bigger problem than you had before. And then, so you have more infection, you go back to the doctor, you get more antibiotics, and it wipes out more of the gut bacteria that was trying to grow. And you're in even a worse position. And it becomes a downward spiral. And a lot of people are in this downward spiral. And they don't even know until they hit rock bottom. And but if you use holistic methods and protocols to get rid of these infections, you can wipe them out without decimating your good bacteria, without decimating your immune system. And then you actually have to build up your immune system so you don't get these infections in the future. For some people, that takes months. For some people, that takes years, because they've used antibiotics. Most people have used antibiotics since they were a child, a baby even. It's unbelievable, but yeah, some babies are given antibiotics. And a lot of these other pharmaceutical drugs, including steroids, they act like antibiotics in the body because they all are petroleum-based synthetic chemicals that wipe out the good gut bacteria. A lot of people don't realize that. Even if you take something like Advil, that destroys your healthy gut bacteria. Tylenol, all that crap. So if you intend to keep training, it behooves you to take the holistic path with all of these things. And I healed my strep throat completely naturally. There was no drama around it. I just easily, quickly, with vitamins, herbs, and lifestyle, healed it. And another very important point I really want to relate here that I think a lot of young people don't realize is that the moment athletes say that there's no path forward for me in this sport without the use of drugs, is the moment you become a cyborg. It's the moment you become transhuman. It's the moment you become a little Darth Vader. Because now you become part human and part machine. These synthetic drugs are replacing the natural organic tissue with its own chemistry. And from a health perspective, this actually depletes you. This actually takes something away from you. I think this is when you actually lose. Even if you later win medals, it's not you who's winning. If you're part machine and part human, who's doing the winning? In the scriptures, it says, what good is it if you win the whole world but lose your soul? Or something like gain the whole world and lose your soul. And very unfortunately, we live in dark times because a lot of people now, they just want that medal or they want that money, those millions of dollars. And they say, F the soul. What is this? Why should I care about the soul? And that's what I'm saying. You're becoming a little Darth Vader. You're becoming a little Palpatine. You will pay for it. You got to understand that. Nobody does these things and then gets away with it. Eventually, you will have to face everything that you did, whoever you hurt, yourself or others, and you're going to have to pay for all of it. And what people are not realizing is when they abuse medications in that way, is when you lose quite a bit of your humanity. Yeah, you lose your soul in the process, but you also lose your ability to feel love, empathy, and compassion. You lose some part of your identity, and it's like a deal with the dark side. It's a deal with the devil, and people I think are doing it unconsciously. I don't think they're sitting there and saying, I'm going to pursue the dark path. I'm going to make a deal with the devil. They're only focused on the win at the expense of all other things, and that's the big mistake. That's where they lose balance. So they become less of the real them. And like I said, then who's winning then? It's not really them, it's the machine. The machine is winning. They're benefiting the machine, and while they are losing. But the illusion is that they're winning. So I don't buy the illusion. I think all of this is very sad. I'm not impressed by this. I'm not impressed with the machine being able to do these things. I'm impressed with a person who has a brilliant, healthy soul, and their sportsmanship is the expression of their healthy spirit, soul, mind, and body. That impresses me. Robots doing things doesn't impress me. So if you're an athlete and you see how important it is to take care of your health, really take care of your health for the long term, and you're sick and tired of the use and abuse of pharmaceuticals, and you're sick and tired of being lied to and abused by the medical system, but you love your sport and you want to keep training and competing, I encourage you to embrace the holistic path and contact me, and I'll show you how to do that, how to start. And I'll teach you how to then do that for yourself. I would love to have a conversation with you about how my holistic health coaching programs can help you with your goals, whether it's your fitness goals or life goals. Contact link is in the description. And some people, I already know. I can read your minds, people. I can read your minds. Some people are already wondering, how can herbs and vitamins and minerals be better and more effective than drugs? People are so impressed with drugs. People worship doctors. Why do you do that, people? It makes no sense. But you have to understand that they were always more effective than drugs. You were just lied to and made to believe you had just one way forward, away from nature and toward, quote unquote, science, which means more and more drugs. This is a big fat lie. You were duped. You were tricked to give away some of your humanity, if because you were told that you can be superhuman if you do that. It's all a big fat lie. It's really time to wake up and sober up. This is the wrong way. This is the destructive way. This is very, very damaging and destructive for each individual and for the human race collectively. So, and if you're wondering, well, how many people have been helped by this? A lot. I've been in practice for about 20 years, and for many of those years, I just helped people. I really was not business oriented. I really should have been more diligent in collecting all the case studies, but I'll put them out there. I'll make those videos. In the meantime, check out the reviews and case and success stories and case studies on my website. I have over 150 5-star reviews on my site, and the link to that is in the description. Those are the recent ones, actually. A lot of them are recent. There's a lot more from the past that I really should have been more diligent in collecting, but like I said, I'll put those case studies eventually into videos. Stay blessed, not stressed.